Okay, everyone. All right, we welcome the second speaker, Jeff.
Well, thanks again to Laurie for taking the time to come and spend with us today. I hope that you've found it helpful and engaging. I think I'd probably just like to say two things by way of response to the matters that Laurie has raised. You've already heard something of what I think on this particular topic. The two things are about the comments that he had to make about the New Testament, the Bible in general, but the New Testament, and I guess the information that we have about Jesus in particular. And then second, I want to come back on the comment that he made about how Jesus was just like many other itinerant preachers of the time who preached a coming kingdom of God and what that meant. So firstly, I think about the Bible and the New Testament. With great respect, I do acknowledge that Laurie is a learned man who's investigated these things, although I do disagree with some of the things that he has to say about the Bible and in particular about its reliability. You'll notice from the advertisements that we have up around the place that this is one of the key questions for many people, the whole question of, is the Bible reliable? Is it factual? And is it trustworthy? And of course, it's the right question to ask. If the source documents that we have aren't accurate, the whole thing falls apart. And yet, you will find, if you do any investigation, that amongst world-class peer-approved scholars, the evidence for Jesus that's contained in the Bible is never disputed. It's not disputed by world-class peer-approved scholars. Now, of course, anyone can have an opinion. A world-class peer-approved scholar is someone who is, I guess, recognised within his or her profession as being a fair and accurate researcher who has tested the sources on their own merits without bias or prejudice. And I think the reason for that is because if you read the Bible, what you discover is that it has, if I can put it this way, the ring of truth. It has the ring of truth about it. Some people have said that it's so unbelievable that it has to be true. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a persuasive argument for many people. But there is something about it in that as you read particularly the stories about Jesus, you find yourself drawn to this man. He's not what you thought he was. And in fact, what he does is so counterintuitive that, quite frankly, if you were to start a religion of your own, you'd never do those things. And you'd never say them either, because they're just too hard to believe. And I realise that that's not an overwhelming knockdown argument, but it does raise a question, particularly when you consider how many people over the course of history have claimed to have met this man and then to have followed him. I appreciated the quotes in particular that Laurie brought to us. I'm looking forward to following through on some of those. They certainly sound like worth a good laugh, if nothing else, taking the whole enterprise not too seriously. Don't read the Bible for a moral code, but to make more atheists. Look, I do agree at least with the first half of that sentence. The Bible's not meant to be read as a moral code, although I think that's how most of us have been brought up to treat it. As I said in my first speech, most of us think the Bible is about you shall do this or you must not do that. And understandably, for any person, but particularly for university students, that's hardly likely to win you many friends. But ultimately, what the Bible, and in particular the accounts of Jesus, invite you to do is get to know a person, to see what he's like, to see if what he cares about, what he's passionate about, what riles him, what he wants to act about, to see if those are things that you care about as well. As I said, as you read it, you discover a man who hates injustice, whether it's committed to himself or, more importantly, to other people, and he's prepared to do something about it, even if it costs to himself. I think the part that I agree most with Laurie when it comes to his comments about the Bible itself is that you ought to read it for yourself. And with him, I echo the challenge to take it up and to read it. One of the shortest accounts of Jesus' life is written by a fellow called Mark, one of his early followers. There's about 15,000 words in his account, which is, 3 or 4 essays strung together if you're an art student, a lot more if you're an NGO. But, 15,000 words. It takes even the slow readers maybe 45 minutes to read it. Maybe think about skipping another lecture and seeing for yourself reading for yourself about this man and about who he was. I guess I want to just come back briefly to the other major point that Laurie raised in his first speech, which is about how Jesus was just another Jewish Messiah, another Jewish preacher who went around proclaiming the coming Jewish kingdom of God. And certainly at one level that's true, although I think there's much more to it than that. And as you read what he has to say, one of the striking things about Jesus is that he talks about not just something for the Jews, of which he is one, but he talks about something for the whole world. And so you hear that most famously in a verse from the Bible that many of you, even if you're not Christian, would have come across. It's from John's account where it says, God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. God so loved not the Jews in particular or the Nazarenes, God so loved the whole world. Jesus is announcing a message for all people everywhere. But I think that what I find myself wondering is if Jesus was just another Jewish preacher talking about the kingdom of heaven, who pays for it with his own life, and that's kind of it, I still find myself wondering, why do so many people still follow him today? You've not heard of most of the other early first century Jewish preachers. They faded into history because, unlike Jesus, there was something different about him that had the ring of truth. Can I encourage you, as this debate finishes, that hopefully those three things that I suggested at the start about who Jesus is, hopefully they've caused you to at least stop and think that maybe he's not the person who you've just assumed he was from TV, from school, from parents, from whoever. But maybe there's something more to him. And the evidence of those around you who've met him, who themselves attest to just how likeable he is, about how he promises that, yes, there is a difference that will be made both in the world at large, but most importantly for your life, that's something that's worth considering whilst you're at university and preparing for this one life that you have to live. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for that, Jeff. That concludes the formal part of the debate, and we want to thank you so much for coming along and having a listen, and especially to both of our speakers, so thanks very much. Just ask Laurie to come up here now. Laurie, we just want to thank you for all the preparation you put into formulating and delivering your point of view, and we really appreciate it, so thanks very much.
Thank you very much.